WBAP salutes Shady Shores. Shady Shores, thank you for listening today to News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3.
Hey there. Welcome to the James Show. This is News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Man, my kids say that a lot. Let's go. Like, we've always said it. Like, we said it when I was a kid. You said it when you were a kid. Eric probably said it when he was a kid. But these kids today, I'm not saying they say it too much. Just something you notice if you hang around kids that are in grade school, maybe high school age too. It's, let's go to everything. Hey, we're going to go to Brahms after we pick up your brother from piano practice. Let's go! Calm down, bro. It's just Brahms. Okay, so look, one of the good things about doing this show, the James Show, any show that starts at 2 in the afternoon, is by now you have seen the video of the big cargo ship that bumped into the Key Bridge in Baltimore, and you saw it collapse, and you have never seen a collapse like that. Don't worry. Neither have I. My first guest, though, is going to help explain some of this to us. Mark Herrera, Director of Safety and Security for the International Association of Venue Managers, now also representing the Department of Homeland Security. So what is the situation going on? I believe last I heard 6 people still missing.
Yeah, so thanks, James, for having me on. First of all, I chair the Public Assembly Subsector Council for DHS, but there have been over 6 people apparently that have been missing. So again, this is going to take an investigation regarding this bridge collapse. It's kind of a multi-tiered approach, and it's all about discovering, trying to determine what was the cause of this collapse, which we know that it was, obviously a cargo ship, but the root cause analysis is really going to determine. And the entire search and recovery is going to determine the cause and how many lives were actually lost as a result of this accident.
As it stands right now, what is the official cause? Cargo ship lost power and then just drifted in? Is that it? Is it really that simple?
Yeah, so the information that's coming across right now is potential propulsion-related issues or mechanical problems potentially with the ship. If that's the case, could that cause the ship to do something other than travel its intended course? It could, right? But they're going to look at that and determine if indeed that is 100% what the cause of the accident was. Well, they're also going to look at potential human error, right? That's always something that you're going to look at. Anything mechanical with the ship, they'll take a look at that, as well as the structure of the actual bridge itself.
Is the fact that the temperature of the water 47 degrees, does that make it harder to survive, or does that contribute to the casualty event?
It's just another element that's going to be challenging for anybody that may be within the water when they collapse. I mean, those are pretty frigid temperatures that you're not going to be able to sustain and survive for long periods of time. So that in itself is just another added risk, not only to the search and recovery, but to those that were subjected as victims to this catastrophic event.
So I haven't seen any tallies of how many cars were on the bridge when it went down. Do you have any of that information?
I don't have the total tally of the number of vehicles, but I'll tell you right now, there's some pros and cons to this. The cons is that it happened at night, and search and rescue can be challenged a little bit more even with the technology that they have. However, the pro is that it wasn't during the day when you'd have had more vehicles on that bridge.
Oh, I know. That could have been so much worse. Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a congresswoman, tweeted about just throwing out the idea that maybe we could look into the terrorism angle. The reports I've seen is that they're ruling it out thus far. What do we know about that?
They right now as it stands, they are actually ruling out potential terroristic threats. They're looking at it more as mechanical related concerns and issues with the actual ship. I think there's no true indicators that it was a terroristic threat, and I would say probably not.
So what was the cargo ship leaving Baltimore, or was it arriving in Baltimore?
That I don't have that information, James, so I couldn't tell you.
My next question is, my first time that I saw the video, it looked like it was being done on purpose because the bridge, the body of water it's over, really only has two big poles that were obstructing. You have this giant bay that it could have just floated through anywhere, and it happened to hit one of the two pylons. So if you're from Homeland Security, I mean, you're speaking on behalf of Homeland Security. What do you say to someone like me who's like, man, that's a big coincidence that it lost power and happened to go straight into the only two things that could have caused any damage?
Yeah, first of all, I'm not speaking on behalf of Homeland Security. I'm speaking on behalf of what I do in regards to providing emergency planning and preparedness for the industry. But I would say that the key is loss of power. Obviously the loss of power or the mechanical side of the actual ship could have been the thing that caused the ship to actually veer in the direction of those supporting beams or piers. And then, of course, the design of those is another thing to look at. Is the integrity of the piers or beams, what are they rated at in regards to being able to sustain impact, right? So those, the data and the analysis is what's going to help them determine, exactly how much force could have been, administered to cause the weakening of that particular structure.
Yeah, well, personally, I don't think it was a terror attack, but from what I saw in the video, I can see why people would lean in that direction. And even if it's not a terror attack, is there any concern that this might give some of those guys an idea?
Oh, James, anytime you have an incident like this, right, it sends out the ideology, right? The ideology is out there that, wow, it's kind of like the Twin Towers. No one ever anticipated that those buildings would be able to, that they were supposed to sustain an aircraft breach, and they didn't, right? Because somebody did the research based on what's happened in the past. So it's no different. You have to take these incidents and look at it like someone out there is going to take this, look at it as a means to affect mass gatherings or affect these structures. So you can't rule that out, James, to your point.
Yeah, it just seems so wild because I know nothing about navigating a giant cargo ship, but I would just think, even if you do lose power and you're headed toward a bridge support, can't you drop an anchor or something?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know enough about ships to really be able to expound on that, but I can tell you this. Are there going to be protocols in place now in the event that this does happen to immediately stop the ship? Yeah. These crew members, these folks that actually operate these cargo ships, they're really pretty good at what they do, right? So they do have to have contingency plans in regards to something like this. And what are they going to be and how are they going to execute them are the discussions that are going to be had, post this investigation on the root cause analysis.
Okay, Mark Herrera, thank you very much for your insights on this horrible tragedy out of Baltimore. Appreciate you taking the time on the James Show.
Thank you, James, for what you do in informing the public.
Thank you, sir. All right, what do you think? Do you think this was a setup? Do you think this was a terror attack? Do you think this was deliberate? Do you think this was sabotage? Do you think this was a disgruntled employee? Do you think this was an Antifa? Or do you really just think that this was an accident? And, oh, oops, the power went out. And, oh, the water current happened to carry me right in the only two places that could have caused the bridge to collapse. What an amazing coincidence. I mean, look, I believe it was just a big goof up, but I can see why you would have a different theory, and I would love to hear it. So a bridge collapsed this morning about 1:30, I guess it'd be 12:30 our time, and a big old cargo ship, one of those huge cargo ships, which is a stacks of boxes. This thing looks like it's made of Legos. It's got so many boxes on it. One of those big guys just plowed right into the side of the bridge, and without one of the two big supports, the whole bridge just starts to do this chain reaction collapse. It's absolutely horrifying knowing that some of your fellow human beings are on that bridge and probably not okay. We're being told there's no suspicion of foul play, a terror attack, or sabotage, or anything untoward. So far, the official story is, well, this just looks like a big old accident. And okay, I can go with that. But I know a lot of my personal friends, a lot of my Facebook friends, and a lot of you are a little more suspicious than that. Let's see what you have to say. 800-288-9227. Hank, you're on the James Show. You're first up. What do you think, Hank?
Hey, I don't know, but I'm from the Bay Area, and I know that in order to go into the San Francisco Bay and the Bay Area, if you're going to Oakland or, San Francisco or further down the bay, that there's a requirement that you have a pilot that is in charge of that ship, once you come into that area. And I don't know if Baltimore Harbor has such a deal or, how that works. But I know it's pretty well regulated from the standpoint in the Bay Area and going into the Bay.
Well,
second point is...
Well, can I respond to your first point? I hesitate to think it's some sort of regulation or protocol issue because they have ships going in and out of that port, under that bridge, all day, every day, and thousands of times, no one's ever bumped into it before. So it's probably not something like, well, all they got to do is add a tugboat or have a pilot or a regulation. I'm sure they got that covered. This is either a terror attack, an intentional boo-boo, or negligence, an accidental boo-boo. Anyway, second point.
Well, the second point is it's going to be a real show from the standpoint of, as I understand, maritime insurance regulators, be it Johnson Higgins or whomever, that are insuring the captain, the ship, and the cargo. This is going to be a real interesting aftermath.
This is not going to be real interesting for them because President Biden spoke about this 2 hours ago, right before the James Show started, and he already said that you're going to pay for it, Hank. He already said that we're going to use federal funds to rebuild that bridge. It's like, hang on a second. I had nothing to do with that. Why do I have to pay for it? And Hank, who should be paying for it? The insurance company for the boat. Or if they don't have insurance, the boat company themselves. Whoever owns that boat, whoever caused that bridge to be knocked down should be paying for it. Not me and you and Sean and Eric and the other guy listening to us right now. That makes me so mad because, thank you, Biden. You're so benevolent. But it's not even a Biden thing. Even Republican presidents do this all the time. Well, this is going to be covered by federal funds, or we're going to cover the cost of that. Or no, you're not going to cover the cost of that. I'm going to cover the cost of that. Hank's going to cover the cost of that. Every time we go to the grocery store and I got to pay $3 for a Snicker, I'm covering the cost of that. Great point, Hank.
Well, hey, I got you, James.
I got to take some more calls, bud.
I think Biden is talking through his fourth point of contact, as is normal, for this thing,
Oh, dude, he was so low energy and slurring this morning. I might play some of that just to show you. Christopher in Frisco, you're on the James Show. What do you think, sir?
Well, Hank kind of covered what I was thinking. Where were the tugboats? Where was the pilot boats? I'm not real sure how this could even happen.
Oh, man, I know so little about that. Like, I knew some tugboat captains when I lived in New Orleans for a few years, and they have a whole system worked out, like top to bottom, and those guys get paid really well. And I don't know. I don't think those gigantic, huge container ships. I mean, what would a tugboat even do to those? Could they even move them? From what I've observed, tugboats are for those barges that they just scoot up and down the river. But I mean, seriously, I am no maritime expert whatsoever, so don't listen to me on this. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Christopher?
No, I would just assume that I'm surprised it hasn't been mentioned or asked on any of the national news.
Man, you know how bad they are at covering these. Thank you for calling, Christopher. Look, that just gives us a job security here at WBAP. Val in Dallas, you're on the James Show. What do you think's going on?
Hi, thank you. I actually going to take a different approach with this, and I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. Yesterday, we had probably one of the most newsworthy raids on P. Diddy, Puff Diddy, and suddenly it's wiped off the news. I mean, he's actually a more well-known figure than Epstein was at the time. And now there's no news story about his plane, his house is being raided. I think it was intentional to change the news, the direction of the news today.
So you think there's some sort of puppet master that controls both P. Diddy and the shipping industry that can make this happen? Or
the people, if P. Diddy has the type of clientele and things that he has that similar to Epstein, there's going to be people that are panicking. And if they have the ability to take a tugboat and send it into a bridge to change the direction of the news, they're going to do it.
Yeah,
I
look,
don't believe in the coincidence.
I'm not saying I co-sign what you're saying, but I can say I do see why you would think that. Absolutely. You know, with the horrible record that the media has and the horrible record that are we supposed to be interested in kids? Because I'm not. All these other media people, what is going on? Because we had the Nickelodeon special that we talked about. What was that? Just yesterday? No, last week. And then we had, the Epstein story was huge. QAnon and that whole system and subculture was all about ferreting out these child predators. We had the documentary last year about Jimmy Savile in England, where basically the guy who's Dick Clark of England for the last generation, turns out he was into kiddos and doing horrible things. I am just blown away at how popular this is. I didn't know how wide ranging it was, and I think it really all started with that Christopher Hansen show, To Catch a Predator, where they would just make an account, say, "Hey, I'm a 15-year-old girl," and they would send a message out in a chat room, and then it blink, 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 blink. They just all of a sudden start getting messages. I think that's a horrifying part. Those of us who don't think like that, we forget there's monsters out there, and there's a lot of them apparently.
And if you think about somebody like Cat Williams or Justin Bieber, they've been naming names, but there's no credibility, and suddenly there's raids on 2 homes of
Valerie,
one of the biggest rap stars ever.
Valerie, are you reading my show notes? Because I have some audio coming up from Cat Williams and, of course, Puff Daddy, and 50 Cent was another big one out on all that stuff. So you are going to want to hear the 3 o'clock hour of the show. So keep listening, or if you have to go away, I'll put it up on the podcast. By the way, you guys, if you're looking for, and thank you for your call. If you're looking for the podcast, WBAP.com, or it's on the WBAP app. When you pull up the app, there's a little podcast icon on the bottom bar. Click that, check out the James Show, and then you just hit one and it'll keep playing. And when that one's over, it'll just go to the next one. And it's pretty convenient, pretty quick, pretty efficient. And it's so you can get James even when I'm not on the air. All right, what do you think about this whole bridge collapse thing? Is this really just a big accident? Now, look, when I first saw that, it looked like the boat was aimed at the support. It looked like it was doing it on purpose. I found out later that, the power had gone out and it just got caught up in the current, and it happened to go, right into the only 2 spots on the entire bay and under that entire bridge that have caused damage. It's a hell of a coincidence, but it may just be just a horrible tragedy all the way around. I'm sorry, the story's so new. I don't have any numbers on how many people are dead or in the hospital or whatever. We're still sorting that out. And as soon as it comes down, I'll pass it along. But what do you think? Does that look legit to you? Ron in Knox City, you're on the James Show. What do you think about this, Ron?
Well, James, it did look like to me there was a loss of propulsion, and a loss of propulsion to also lose steering.
Larry, check this out.
Go ahead.
I haven't had a chance to really go look at it real thoroughly, but I'm wondering if there was a loss of propulsion, loss of steering, why they didn't drop their anchor. And they could have. I haven't seen it. If they dropped their anchor, it could have swung them into the bridge. But generally, that would be protocol. You lose propulsion, you drop your anchor. You don't. I mean, ships don't stop on a dime.
Of course not. But listen, my limited boating experience, one time my father-in-law's a goofball, and he likes sailing. He's like, motors don't exist. You people who like sailing, by the way, I have very high suspicions about you. Like, the motor's been invented. We don't have to do wind power. You just want to do it for funds. Well, he ran his sailboat up on the seawall, and my first question was like, dude, why didn't you drop anchor? I know, like, the wind shifted on you, and we were in a tight spot going in and out of the harbor, and so there wasn't like a lot of room for air, but you couldn't just drop the anchor. And apparently I know nothing about boats.
Well, I spent 10 years in the Navy, and I've been in a couple of accidents, and one of them just happened to be a loss of propulsion. We took out a pier at Fort Island. Every pile on, about 150 of them.
But you have experience to know that even if they did drop the anchor, they still could have just swung around and hit it that way?
Yes. Because the anchor moving like that, the anchor may have drug, and it very well could have stopped them, and they swung around. Like I said, I haven't really had a chance to look at it real thoroughly.
Well, go look at it and then send me a message on Facebook and see if it still stands up. I'm going to take some more calls, Ron. That's good stuff. I needed to hear from a vet because clearly I don't know. I know so little about this. I'm sorry. Tony in Fort Worth, you're on the James Show. What did that look like to you?
It looked like they had lost propulsion, and I've got a theory on it that they don't have just one propeller on those cargo ships. It has got to be multiple propellers. And think of a bowling ball going down a bowling alley, and there's one tiny little thing, and that bowling ball is moving really, really fast, and it's got a very narrow lane to go down to hit the pins. And if it hits anything on that bowling alley, it's going to go. So if they lost, let's say, their left propulsion system on their left rotor or on their left propeller, then the right propeller is still turning, and it's starting to turn them towards that. Now, you just can't push in a clutch and stop that propeller from turning. You've got to shut those engines down and reverse them, and that takes time. And I just think it was a tragic accident.
Yeah, maybe so. I think the whole ship shut down. So the idea that it could just be one engine went down and then the other one turned it into, I'm not sure if that can hold up. So, but again, I don't know. I know so little about boats. I almost hate talking about this, but that video is crazy. Thank you very much.
It was.
I'm going to try and squeeze in two more before the break here. So, okay. John, Grapevine, make it fast. What do you think?
Very simple. It's just another question that needs to be answered. If there's 6 workers up on the bridge at 1:30 in the morning, there has to be a reason. What was so wrong that they had to work at 1:30 in the morning?
Well, I'll tell you why I don't question that. I mentioned my father-in-law. This is a great coincidence. His brother, so my father-in-law's brother, my wife's uncle, he had a job where he repainted a bridge his entire life, the Huey P. Long Bridge in New Orleans, and he would hang out on the harnesses down there, and him and a guy would paint, and by the time they got finished going down one side of the bridge and then up the other side of the bridge, it was time to start over. And so there's always workers on some of these bridges, from my experience. So I don't question that the fact that there's workers on the bridge
at 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that's the best time to do your painting.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
You're right to be suspicious, though. Question everything. I don't take anything at face value, so be skeptical. I don't mind. Jim in Waco, you're going to have the last word on this. What do you think, sir?
This is Ken in Waco. I don't think it was an accident. Excuse me, I do think it was an accident because taking that bridge out makes the swamp people very aggravating to drive around that place. They wouldn't take a bridge out right near themselves where they had to be inconvenienced with driving and stuff like that. And it wasn't in a red state.
Well, I like that part. It wasn't in a red state. What about this, though? Is there a coincidence, Jim, if I take it the other direction, the fact that it was that bridge, even whether it's in a blue state or red state, that happens to be in the path if you were driving from D.C. to the president's house in Delaware? That's one of the routes you could or should take. And Biden, in his statements earlier today, even said, I've gone over that bridge hundreds of times going back and forth between Delaware. And then he said, you're going to pay for fixing it for some reason. I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, and his son died in 10 different places in 10 different years.
Yeah, good point.
That guy says.
All solid points. Thank you very much, Jim in Waco. All right, this is The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3.